I was listening to some people being interviewed on the radio recently. What they were being interviewed about was their shuffle control on their music player. I've never used it much myself, but there's this button that you can press, whether on your CD player or on your Walkman or on your computer. And what it will do is it will play the tracks stored in a random order. And people were talking about this. Somebody was saying how clever it is that it always seems to know what's the right track to play at a certain time. You've got it on random, but you're driving along in your car, and just as the sun appears round a corner, the music hits a certain point, and there's this wonderful moment of concordance, of harmony. And then there was one guy saying, well, his music player just gets it wrong, it always plays the wrong track. He thought maybe there was something wrong with the algorithm, or something wasn't working right. And people were thinking, yes, it's very clever how it manages to find out your taste, how it manages to play just the correct track at the right time, or depending on what your mood is. There's nothing clever about it at all in that sense. There's nothing heuristic about it. It's actually random, or as random as the technology allows. And yet, people are ascribing a certain cleverness to it, almost like a personality, either a beneficent one or a malevolent one, depending on your nature. And what we've got here is our mind creating something out of randomness. Our mind creating a structure where there is none. It's a trivial example, but this is what our mind is doing all the time. It's our mind that is creating the apparent structure of a universe, of a consistent universe. The Brahmana Chudala continued, "It is by such nature of the self that this universe is born. It is sustained by self-limitation or conditioning, on account of alternating order and disorder. When such self-limitation and such conflict between order and disorder cease, the beings will not be born again." So we've got these notions about the shuffle player, the shuffle control. This is a conflict between order and disorder. Is there some order to it? Or is it just disorder? We're creating this order. We're creating the beings which give it character, either benevolent or maleficent. And it's self-limitation. This is self-limitation. It's what it creates everything, but it's self-limitation. It's about trying to figure things out rather than total acceptance, total going with whatever's happening, rather than going with our notions about what is happening. So the Brahmana is Chudala in disguise, the wife of Sikadvaja. She's disguised herself as this Brahmana, this young priest, so that her husband will listen to her. He's overjoyed at meeting this young priest and has asked him his story. And the Brahmana has started talking about Narada, a great sage, who was, although a great sage, a holy sage, was overcome by lust for some celestial nymphs. And he spilt his seed, as they say in scriptures. Continuing the story of Narada, the Brahmana said, "Soon Narada regained his self-control. He gathered the seed which had been spilt in a pot made of crystal. He then filled the pot with milk produced by his thought force. In due course, that pot gave birth to an infant, which was perfect in every respect. Narada christened the baby and in course of time imparted the highest wisdom to it. The young boy was a peer to his father. Later, Narada took the boy to Brahma the Creator, the father of Narada." So this sage Narada was like Vasishta, born directly of Brahma, So he was a powerful being. Brahma conferred upon the boy, whose name was Kumbha, the blessing of the highest wisdom. It is that boy, that Kumbha, that grandson of Brahma, who is standing before you. I roam the world playfully, for I have nothing to gain from anyone. When I come into this world, my feet do not touch the earth. And this is actually Sikadvaja's wife spinning this story about being a grandson of the creator Brahma. But the story becomes true. The story becomes true. She is Kumbha, the Brahmana boy. And we have this interesting story of the crystal pot. I think here we now have the male equivalent of a virgin birth. Perhaps there's something symbolic in it. There's no need for a mother here. The boy grew up in a crystal pot with milk created by Narada's thought force. Who needs women? And with the virgin birth, who needs men? It seems that Sikadvaja might have a problem with women, even though he and Chudala were married for a long time. He could not hear the teaching from her. He could not hear the teachings of wisdom from his own wife, and could only regard her enlightenment as female prattle. So off he had to go and suffer for years in the forest as a result. And this is going to be addressed with quite some force in the coming chapters. Even though Sikadvaja had studied the scriptures, even though he was well versed in the teachings, he still could not recognize wisdom when it was presented to him. He was so caught up in his ideas of spirituality that you have to go into the forest, you have to take all your accoutrements, all the accoutrements of the ascetic, you have to do all your yogic practices, but he was getting absolutely nowhere. As Vasishta said, the 17th day came to an end, so we're 17 days in.